So this unit we have 4 chapters. Chapter 8 is about the economic changes. 9 is political. Yesterday in class, or yesterday SB30 review session, we spent a lot of time in chapter 9. 10 are social changes, and 11 is about going west. So if you are anyone who is not 1A, you have not done most of going west yet, but you'll get that today or tomorrow. So today we can kind of talk about any one of these chapters. This morning in our review session, we spent some time in 9 and 10 again, or actually, I'm sorry, 8 and 10. So we can kind of go wherever people are feeling like we should talk about. Is there anything like big topics or big ideas that you feel would be helpful? Social stuff? So socially, we talked about in chapter 10 some big things that people are lives changing. One of the big things is through the Second Great Awakening. Okay, Second Great Awakening, remember, is where we have a religious revival, increase church membership, we have churches splitting for a variety of reasons. We have theological differences. Theological means it's like they have different beliefs about something religiously, but also because of social differences. What was the big social difference that's going to split up churches? The issue of slavery, where some churches will argue that slavery is justified in the Bible, others will argue that it's not. Some of the biggest effects of the Great Awakening, besides the splitting of churches, is that many people want to join reform movements. Right? To reform means to fix a problem. And there'll be many problems that people will point to in the early 1800s as that's something we need to fix. For example, prisons, asylums, state-run hospitals are all poorly run, poorly funded, and so people like Dorothea Dix are going to argue for better funding, better maintaining, better lives for the people who are in. Another reform movement is going to be talking about women's rights. So if you're looking at the problem, fixing a problem, we looked at what did society expect for women during this time? So what did society expect from women? Stay at home, teach children. So we have the cult of domesticity, where you're taking care of home, teaching children. We also see teaching children under the Republican motherhood. We are teaching Republican and civic values to children. Republican small r, not the Republican Party. Republican as in like self-government and democracy. So that's seen as like the problem for many women in the early mid to early 1800s. We need to expand this so it's not a societal pressure or expectation of women. They should have other options if they so choose. And so women get together at Seneca Falls, New York, where they talk about political power. Like the franchise. That's in your notes, your study guide. What's a franchise? Voting. And they're talking about giving women voting rights. They create a document called the Declaration of Sentiments, where they talk about what they want, what they demand from society. They even use language from the Declaration of Independence, because everyone knows that at this time, right? They take the phrase, all men are created equal, and rephrase it to all men and women are created equal. The country listen to them? No, country ignores them. Women are also going to be very involved in the abolition movement. Any of this stuff. Let's talk about transcendentalism again. We cannot find truth in our senses. We can't see truth. We can't hear truth. Truth can only be given or attained through self-reliance and reflection, meditation. It's very nature focused or nature centered. It critiques the capitalist system. Like Henry David Thoreau, who's going to leave the big city of Boston and go and build a cabin in the woods of Massachusetts and live out there and gain truth and develop this mystical relationship with the universal being. From that, from the Second Great Awakening and from Transcendentalism, we have many groups that will form utopian societies. Where they want to perfect social communities. Let's make the perfect community. Let's be perfectly social with each other, the way we're supposed to live. Let's go against capitalism and the market economy. Let's go against traditional marriage. One religious group that we're gonna see that's gonna try to form their utopian society are the Mormon people. Who will face persecution. So what do they do to escape persecution? Where do they go? They go to Utah. They move west. What was the main issue that they're like upset that other people are upset about that they said? Polygamy is the big issue that other communities have. The Mormon people, eventually the Mormon faith will drop the polygamy belief when they're applying for state. Here. We're gonna in class where like things. Okay. Let's quickly talk a little bit about conflict between North and South, because we're seeing this over and over again, right? So some issues that the North supports and the South is against, right? The North is pro-tariffs, anti-tariffs, pro-Bank of the United States, anti-Bank of the United States. Pro roads and canals, anti-roads, canals. Some basic ones. But even looking at like conflict between the different states, like what to do with Missouri, right? Missouri was a slave state. It was a territory that wanted to become a slave state. But there was some controversy over if you bring Missouri in, that could lead to an imbalance. So they're gonna have to create a Missouri compromise, right? And so while Missouri is going to be becoming a slave state, they're also going to add another state as a free state. I remember which one of that was? Maine. And they also say anything, any territories above Missouri, MO is Missouri, will be free states in the future. Right? That's the Missouri Compromise. For those in 1A, you heard this already. If you're not, you haven't heard this yet. But the South will also want Texas to be a state because it's going to be a slave-holding state. The North does not want to expand. They don't want to take over more areas of land. Thank you. Oh, you're good. They don't want to take out any more land because it could lead to more slave states, and they don't want that. So we're going to see this fight over slave states, free states expand, especially when we get into our next unit number 4. The South is going to use chattel slavery. I can't remember if we've used that phrase before, but it's on the test definitely. Chattel slavery is all about treating enslaved people as property. Whereas in the north, we see increased abolition movements. Some will argue for colonization, which is what? Sending African freed people back to colonies in Africa, specifically Liberia. But as time goes on, many abolitionist groups condemn colonization and want immediate emancipation, which means like outright freeing enslaved people. Okay. Who is an example of somebody who is for emancipation of people we've talked about? William Lloyd Garrison is one. Remember, he's the one who created a newspaper that was an anti-slavery informational newspaper. There's people like Harriet Tubman, who is going to be a main influence in the Underground Railroad. Here's one thing that is happening in both places. Universal white male suffrage. What's suffrage again? Right to vote. So suffrage, franchise, both mean voting. Okay. This is happening in both areas where states are expanding democracy. I think that's how it's phrased in your study guide. Expanding democracy by extending white male suffrage, by getting rid of property qualifications. Remember, before this time, if you were going to vote, you had to own property and be a white man. Now they're getting rid of the property qualifications, the wealth qualifications, to give voting rights to all white men. This leads to way more people voting, and ultimately this idea of the common man, right? Which I think we talked about yesterday in our speaker. Okay, a whole bunch of stuff. We have a few minutes left. More specific questions from your study guide. You're like, Mr. Barth, talk about this, speak about that. Okay.
So, like, what's the thing that's like most important for us to like study? What's
I was kind of saying this earlier to this morning's students. Tariff, Bank of the United States, and roads and canals. All that together is what? The American system. I think knowing the American system helps to put a lot of things in context, because from that you can figure out, okay, in the 1830s, what was the big tariff issue? Well, it was the nullification crisis, right? So then you can know about the nullification crisis. Bank of the United States. Okay, I know what Bank of the United States is. Oh, I also know about the bank wars and how Jackson tried to kill the bank. Roads and canals. Oh, that helps when you learn about the transportation revolution. So I think this is a good like starting point, and then it opens you up to a lot of different terms that are on your study guide. So I think also seeing like the fight between North and South is beginning to emerge in this time period. I think that's also a good way to kind of frame this. So yeah, maybe something like that. but there's not like a single, like, you should know this one topic. Anything else?
Why didn't the South like building this?
Good question. Why were the South anti-roads and canals? It's not they were anti those things. Where's all the money going to? It's all going to the north. So most of the roads, most of the canals, most of the turnpikes, is that all that money is being spent in the northern states, not in the southern states. They're not getting any of that money, or very little of the money. So that's why they're against that. Okay. We're good. There will be another review session tomorrow morning, starting at 7:50. You don't have to be there right at 7:50. If you get here at 8:05, that's fine. Come here for a little bit at least, and we'll talk some more. But tomorrow morning is our last review session, everybody.